This is an overview of Paymetric's Data Intercept for e-commerce solution. The page which you see here is taken from the Data Intercept for e-commerce Merchant Integration Guide, and the graphic on the left is meant to represent a merchant web store application, specifically a checkout page. You're able to review the order, the items you've placed in the shopping cart, the address entered, etc. And the merchant would be rendering this information using their style sheets, their graphics, their fonts, etc. The box is meant to represent the fields which Paymetric's Data Intercept for e-commerce solution would render, specifically the payment fields, a card type, a card number, an expiration date, a CVV value, and a Pay Now button. The way in which these fields are rendered is by injecting a JavaScript tag into the HTML of the page so that when the customer's browser renders that page, there is a call made out via SSL to Paymetric to retrieve the information on how to render these particular fields on the page. So let's switch now and pull up an application which will effectively render that same little box. We'll go ahead and start the solution here, and it will open up a browser session and connect to the Paymetric Data Intercept for e-commerce solution. Now you'll see effectively the same fields, and we don't have an entire web page being displayed here, a checkout page. We're simply going to highlight the features of the Paymetric Data Intercept for e-commerce solution. So this box again represents the fields that would be displayed or rendered by Paymetric. You can see the labels for the card type field, and we have a drop-down listing various card types that can be accepted. We could enter a credit card number, expiration date, CVV value, and click on Pay Now. When you do click on the Pay Now button, that will then send this information, make a post out to Paymetric, passing these details, allowing Paymetric to tokenize the value entered in the card number, and then push that information back to the browser so that it can be returned to the merchant application. So if, for example, we were to enter a test MasterCard number, a dummy expiration date in the future, and a dummy CVV value, and click on the Pay Now button, that information would be passed out to Paymetric. You can see that the packet signature passed verification, so we've authenticated that this application has the rights to call out to the merchant's XiSecure account with Paymetric. The card information is captured and the card number has been tokenized successfully. You can see the card type is listed as 5000. Internally that means that it was a MasterCard. All that is described in the integration guide. But this token would then be returned to the browser so that it could be then passed back to the merchant. In addition to the token, you can see the other information that would be passed back, the expiration date, so the month and year, the CVV value, what the card type was, again a Paymetric defined value, 5000 meaning MasterCard, and then the bin range type. So all these fields are described in the Merchant Integration Guide, and effectively what we've done now is captured the payment information on behalf of the merchant, secured the card number and replaced it with a token, and then made that available to the browser session and eventually to the end merchant. Now if you wanted to change some of these fields, you could certainly do so. For example, right now the Pay Now button is labeled as such, Pay Now. If we wanted to change the text of that to say Submit instead of Pay Now, I can make a change in the code here so that the label would instead read Submit, and when I refresh my browser you'll notice that change is made. So you have full control over what that should read, what the label should read. You're also able to change the language key and change each of the elements according to some predefined translations that Paymetric has. However, if you wanted to change just a single label, again I could make a change here, uncomment some code that I have, and we'll refresh that, and let's stop and restart this service. And when it opens up that browser session, you'll notice now that my text has changed to read credit kort nummer in Danish rather than the credit card number in English, and my button still is labeled Submit. So quite a bit of functionality that you can control. You can relabel things, you can move around on the screen where the various elements are displayed. That is something you have full control over. Use your style sheet to render the graphics, the colors, the look and feel of the page, and have these particular fields simply embedded within the page to look as if they were being rendered by your merchant application rather than Paymetric. There would not be a pop-up box, there would not be a separate URL, it would be your page. Effectively, that's the Paymetric Data Intercept for e-commerce solution, and a quick look at some of the features and functionality available.